Plagueis book was like the sort
It
of
was a perfect
capstone
swan
on the
song.
EU.
Yeah, it was a perfect swan song for the
Well,
end of the EU.
it was also the worst because he had just strung together everything,
It
and then they
made it all
decided
work.
none of that happened. A couple of years ago, we tried to revive interest in the franchise. Then Kenobi happened, and it died. Um,
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned, hey, let's do Dark Rendezvous, and that was the gateway. I think it was just like, oh,
yeah.
this is so good. This is like coming home, and it kind of lit the
Yeah.
beacons for me and drew me back into the world.
We are feeling the spark again, and we're really looking forward to what we have to bring you in the future.
Yeah,
Because
we're coming to
Yeah.
the end of the dark times. A new hope is
Exactly.
rising. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, and welcome back to Finalysis. I'm Callum. This is Matt.
Holy shit, he did that right the first time. Cool. Hey, everybody.
And this is Evan.
Miracles are possible within the Force. Hello, everyone.
Miracles are indeed possible. Speaking of, I have fallen back in love with Star Wars. After about, 7-ish years, I am finally back into that Star Wars mood that I used to enjoy way back in the day growing up. It has been a long and arduous journey, but I am here, and we're going to talk about why and how as a group today. So yeah, we've
You can
been
really tell
talking.
he's in the mood because he's even, taken up a station in the Millennium Falcon.
Yes, yeah, it's a good backdrop for Star Wars vibes. No, yeah, so I've basically been out of the loop for Star Wars. I mean, I was checking in the background as you always do with the things you can't avoid these days on the internet. But I haven't been properly immersed in it and enjoying even the original material that we so love to talk about for a very long time. I've never fallen completely off the bandwagon. Obviously, I've always known and loved that I appreciate the stuff, but that feeling of when you're kind of sitting down and listening to that John Williams music, the full immersion of the Star Wars feeling has just not hit me for so long after a pretty protracted period of just not good material. Basically, it just kind of put up a wall between me and the original Legends material that I loved until very recently, as we can discuss. But
It was
yeah,
my
this
fault,
is
right?
yeah, basically, you kind of mentioned, hey, let's do Dark Rendezvous, and that was the gateway. I think it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is so good. This is like coming home, and it kind of lit the beacons for me and drew me back
Well,
into the
I'm
world.
sorry. There's all kinds of things where you'd probably be better, served spending your time elsewhere at this point, but you're gonna get sucked back into Star Wars now. So you're
I
welcome.
do not
But
regret it. I do not regret it. I've got a big book collection some of which I've read, and obviously some of which I haven't yet. Evan sent a load over to me to kind of stir
really?
me back in. And yeah, top of the pile was the Thrawn trilogy after Dark Rendezvous. So I for the first time in years I picked it up and I went, oh, this is good. This is giving me the old chills. That John Williams music is playing in my head, and I'm feeling like the natural
Tatooine
extension
suns
of
were shining
exactly
through
the binary
his
sunset
window.
theme, the Force Sweet theme. That just lilting on the horizon for me, and
Well, what
it
the
pulled
hell?
me
Like,
straight back
where's my
in.
box of books, Evan? You didn't get me nothing.
This is
Not
from years
never.
ago. Bear in mind, this was like when we first fell off the wagon, and he was like, "Oh, I've got to get him back in." And
Oh,
I
really?
I just
Oh, I
hadn't
got you.
touched it.
Well, yeah, and he
Um,
kept going on about how he just couldn't have access to books.
Oh,
So I
yeah,
thought we needed
the
to
old
remedy
Legend
that.
material was not as easy to access as it once was.
gotcha.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
Gotcha.
man, that was so
I
long ago.
well,
Sorry.
we basically a few years ago we got, well, what, 2.5 years ago now, we kind of tried to get back into it. You guys were talking to me about Deception and Shatterpoint and some of the big highlights that you loved. Deceived. I keep calling it Deception. Deceived. The highlights of that
Yeah.
era that you loved.
Yeah.
And we did try. We went and read those
Well,
again and
those
got ready
were
to record, and
there were
it
things.
just never happened. It was a short-lived buzz, but this one seems to be
So,
lingering.
some things have not been. So we've recorded that some things over the years that will never see the light of day, whether because the recordings were lost or who cares or whatever. I think we were like getting ready to or had already talked about the Kenobi show around that time,
Yes. Yeah.
and I think that
Yeah.
that's. Uh, I mean, the Kenobi show is like an all-time low point, right?
Mm.
Like that's, or at least for me, I don't know. Like we're gonna get into it soon because after we're done with this little dog and pony show that we're doing here, we're gonna do
Mhm.
fun Star Wars ranking video
Exactly.
for
This is
everybody. But
yeah.
yeah,
This
like
is
the Kenobi
kind of meant to
show.
highlight where we've been, what we've been up to as far as this specific series go, not like our own individual stuff, but also
Yeah,
I'll general talk about the state of Star Wars overall and how we're each kind of feeling at this moment, because I think we're all coming from different places in our own ways, but we've been able to kind of harmonize our energies right now, and that's why we're doing this again.
Yeah, the Kenobi show is where I've been since I was gonna ask you guys, what's like the last thing that you really liked that was new until Andor came out? Because there's a
Not
good
counting
long gap
Andor,
there.
I've really not enjoyed anything Star Wars from the new material. I
For
really
how, but I
haven't.
mean, since when? That's what I'm getting at. Like, what's the last thing you actually loved? I'm asking, go to that far back.
Yeah, going back
Loved
to the
or liked?
original.
Loved or really liked,
Bear in mind, this won't
maybe.
necessarily be the last thing they released that's good, but the last thing that comes to mind that I experienced in my chronology would have been Plagueis, I think, from the
Hmm.
latest
I
release
thought we
of
were talking
Plagueis.
Yeah,
about the new. I thought we were talking about the new canon Disney
I
stuff.
Well, there's a bit
wasn't
of an overlap.
necessarily. I
There's
was
a bit
just
of an
talking about.
overlap, but yeah. So discounting the Disney background stuff, like just there's a bit of an
That's the
overlap
funny
between
Yeah,
the
thing.
because if we're
two.
counting legend stuff, like for me, it's like I mean, for my videos and stuff like that, like the NJO council video I released most recently. I had to revisit a lot of that era in order to do
Hmm.
that video. So all that's very fresh in my head, and it's the most recent
Oh,
thing,
okay.
Legends, that I've
Yeah,
re-experienced, and I absolutely adore that series, as I've made clear over the years. As far as new stuff goes, I mean, before Andor, which I did enjoy. Um,
yeah. Spoiler alert. We all liked
Yeah,
Andor,
we all
just
love
so
Andor
everyone
because
understood, and
Andor is
we will talk
yeah,
about
absolutely
it someday. Yeah,
fantastic. We will
yeah.
discuss that,
I
especially when a new series
that I
comes out.
genuinely or kind of liked. I mean, I think there might have been like a Vader comic or two that I
Hmm.
read at some point that I
See,
thought was okay. I was like, okay, this is okay.
I'm
That's
gonna.
honestly the last thing that really hits me. I didn't enjoy Kenobi overall, although there were a few things about it I thought were kind of okay, but overall
Less
that show was
offensive and
not that
comical.
great.
Okay,
Yeah,
so for me, I'm with Callan. The last thing I
pretty
loved was Plagueis,
pretty
and
bad.
so it pretty much since the Plagueis book was like the sort
It
of
was a perfect
capstone
swan
on the
song.
EU.
Yeah, it was a perfect swan song for the
Well,
end of the EU.
it was also the worst because he had just strung together everything,
It
and then they
made it all
decided
work.
none of that happened.
Right.
And so it was weird because it was really like the Tarkin book was like
Mm.
the kind of
It was the first
Yeah.
step
bridge between,
into
and
the
he wrote
new.
both of those. and
Yeah.
and you could kind of feel that he wanted it to still be true, all the plague stuff that he had just put all those years and effort into, a book they had canceled and then resurrected for him to do again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um so I mean that book is an amalgam of the EU, and then the EU died, so it was
Yeah.
weird.
Recent stuff, like the most recent thing I read all the way through was NJO Unifying Force, and I actually did a little post about this a bit ago because this for me was like revisiting this, like this really did feel like so much of what the EU at the time had been building to all kind of coming together. Not
Mhm.
just the NJO story, but like things like Thrawn, things like the Jedi Academy books, and I even said this in the post, like even though the post NJO stuff continued after this, it really did feel like if things had just stopped here with this, it would not necessarily have been the worst place to kind of bow out for this era. And just even in hindsight, though, the fact that this is like so well written, and the fact that it concludes this epic that had been going at the time for so long with so many books is just, I mean, the fact that it could even attempt this and actually come out on the lighter side of things is absolutely fantastic. It's not my favorite book in the series, but it's just what it accomplishes is just something to really admire. So
I mean,
I'd say this.
Sure.
I mean, the era that came from was pretty much the peak of the EU's kind of cohesion back when they were still
Yeah.
creating material and trying to keep everything connected and working within a larger canon,
Mhm.
etc. I mean, the heights
Yeah.
of that part of the Star Wars era, as in real life era, mid 2000s, late 2000s, getting
Mhm.
to the tail end of it. That was what
Yeah.
the EU kind of
So
was for so many of
yeah.
us.
Yeah. So
Getting
yeah.
getting from that to just the death of the EU overall for no particularly good reason,
Horrible.
that left a really bad sour note in the mouth that just kind of hung over a lot of the late stage content that I was consuming. Basically finishing off with Plagueis being fantastic and brilliant and loved it. But then, yeah, like you said, Matt, it was kind of horrible that we then
Well,
immediately lost all of that. So
Yeah.
that
well, I
hung
mean,
over like a shadow. Everything
Plagueis
that came afterwards, good
Absolutely.
and
Like
bad, and most of it was
yeah.
bad,
Yes.
until
Plagueis
Andor
came
came
out
along.
in
Oh,
2000. Plagueis came out in 2012, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
mean, it's been dead for 13 years now.
mm.
Just the to me, and like as far as the shows go, I can't talk about The Mandalorian. I've never seen it. I'm sure that the first season at least is quality
Mm.
because it just looks good. But then I found out that like Giancarlo Esposito was looking for the dark saber or something
Yeah.
from the Clone Wars show, and
Yeah,
I
that whole
don't I
thing
do not
becoming
care. I saw that that's all I knew, and that was enough to totally kill my interest. And I was like, I don't need to see this, and I don't care about Baby Yoda or I mean I love Pedro Pascal as an actor. I loved him in The Last of Us. I loved him in Game of Thrones. I'm excited to see him as Reed Richards. He's playing Reed Richards, right, in
yeah,
Fantastic Four. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like
Um,
I I love him as an actor. I don't like him enough to watch him just be a buckethead, who hangs out with the baby Yoda. And then when I found out that like the baby Yoda was like old, but still a baby, I was because in my head that's the joke I would write if I was
Mm.
making a spoof. And then they actually went for that, and I was like, I'm not watching that. But I'm sure it's
yeah.
good, you know.
It's got
Like,
its
I'm
its
sure it's
points, and
yeah.
but around the second season of Mandalorian and all the shows that started releasing in that kind of package,
Yeah.
that was when it started to get schlocky and just print for money, and yeah, everything basically just became let's make a show. We don't care about the
Well, I mean,
world.
the
Let's just
Book
make a
of
show.
Boba Fett looks really bad. That looks like a candidate for maybe the
Oh
worst.
my gosh, that
You
was
know,
not to get too like we're not trying to be too negative here, but like
Yeah,
Book of Boba Fett,
well, I'm just explaining.
that
I'm not
was
trying to. Yeah, I don't even need to talk about them
totally
individually. Really,
different.
I'm just explaining. Like, it's been a parade of just not,
Failures.
just unappealing stuff and failures. Yeah, I have not been into it until Andor came out, and that came out the same year
mm,
as the Kenobi show.
night
And the
and day.
Kenobi show, I mean, if you liked the Kenobi show, we have to sit down and have a talk. Or we need to agree to go our separate ways forever because
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I
Like,
think that's the main thing with it.
There was like one honestly, there was like one concept from that show that I thought was kind of interesting. The
and
rest
I'm
garbage.
can I ask? Can I unironically ask which that was? If there's a good point, I've
Oh, sure.
forgotten what it was. What are you talking about? See, I'm
Sure, sure.
genuinely asking.
And when I say yeah, yeah, like I said, this is what I was
Genuinely
saying earlier.
asking. I'm
No,
not
no,
taking
that's
the
okay.
piss or trying to
Yeah,
shit on it. Yeah.
no, no, please. Yeah, like that's what I was saying earlier when I said that there was like one aspect of Kenobi I thought was kind of interesting. The one, like I said earlier, and I'm not even saying this is good, and I'm not even saying this was handled well in the show. It wasn't. Like everything in that show was handled terribly. The one concept from that I thought was kind of interesting, just on a fundamental level, was the idea that your mindset and your both your belief and your spiritual standing can affect your ability to draw on the force, which is something that Kenobi goes through. I think conceptually that's kind of interesting, and it's the
I
one
will
concept
say
from that
I
show
had
that I
zero,
thought like it's kind of one of those things where it's like if this was a good story, you might be able to take
yeah,
this somewhere that's kind of compelling. The
I
problem
had
is
zero problem with that.
it's
Like that
horribly
that
done.
was fine.
That's
It was
that's the thing.
literally
Yeah,
everything, yeah,
like
everything
that's
but
like
that was just terrible.
like I said,
You
like
know,
it's like I was
yeah.
saying earlier, like the one, like when you asked about anything we thought was interesting from Disney, that was like the
Uh-huh.
one thing from that era, like the Kenobi show era and Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian era, that I thought like had some glimmer of potential. I didn't, but aside from that, the rest was just garbage.
I agree with the
So
concept as an
can I just
interesting one.
say
I would say though personally, Kenobi would be the last possible Jedi I would pick to represent that in terms of like a
Yeah,
struggle
no,
based on everything we
that's
know about him.
that's
He's
what
like
I'm
the
saying
one
I
too.
person he
honestly
wouldn't apply that
Horribly
to.
handled. It's an
But
interesting
it could have
concept
been
that just
done well
didn't.
anyway. It just
Yeah,
we
it
talked
wasn't.
we talked about this and it just never saw the light of day for whatever reason. We talked about this show and it's basically just to me like a real just miserable vlog. I've seen the Acolyte. Everybody's shitting on the Acolyte. I think the Acolyte is mostly boring and
Mm,
just dull. I don't think it's a horrible show. It's pretty much just to me kind of generic. We bought this franchise. Here's some Jedi. Here's some dark people. They have a conflict. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I don't care about Ahsoka. Even when she's in material that people who love Ahsoka love her for, I don't care about her there. To me, she never really had a place in the story of the Clone Wars. My Clone Wars experience was complete before she was ever thought of. Um, so whatever they've done in the live action Ahsoka, I'm not paying attention to that. If you're loving it, good for you. It's been a desert for me for Star Wars as far as like the stuff that they've been coming out with for a long, long time. And so what we're kind of getting at, and it's revealed itself in the fact that you're going back to like the unifying force, and Callan's talking about deceived and Plagueis, and so am I. What's getting us back into it is dusting off old favorites. And a
Mhm.
lot of the things that we're looking towards covering are things that we kind of planned to cover a long time ago when we were all newly kind
When
of
our love
forged
was still
friends.
alive
But
for
then
the
it
world.
died. Yeah, yeah. Like the friendship did never
Oh
die.
yeah,
The
no, we've been
friendship
in
never
yeah.
died,
For
but
people
the
mentioning
Star
in the
Wars
comments, we've
died.
been in touch non-stop
Yeah, yeah,
basically since. It's never been gone
absolutely.
away.
Yeah.
Just the recordings have.
No,
So
no.
but yeah, so Yoda Dark Rendezvous kind of kicked us off back into okay, let's talk about this in front of cameras again, as opposed to just every now and then talking about it among friends. So
Hmm.
eventually, an awful lot of things that we have never talked about that we always said we're going to, we will get to. Evan, do you want to reveal what the first of those is going to be soon?
Yeah, well, we figured since we're getting back into the, EU books, I think we thought it would be appropriate to, visit the novel that arguably kicked everything off,
Start
that
at the very
being
beginning. Heir to the
Heir to the
Empire.
Empire by Timothy Zahn, the beginning of the Thrawn trilogy.
It was like I said before,
Right.
the top of my pile of books, and I thought, I'll give this a go. I remember this.
Mhm.
This was a special time in my life. Picked it up, fell in love
Basically,
immediately.
yeah, basically the series
Excited to
that
talk
most
about it.
people think of when you say Star Wars Expanded Universe. And we're not just
Mhm.
going to be I mean, we're not just doing Air. We have the entire trilogy on the docket.
And more besides,
Indeed.
we won't.
Yeah.
I think we probably want to keep some of that a secret, just so that people aren't holding our feet to the fire on when it'll come out. But it'll come out, and we're pretty booked up with like our little calendars for like the next few months on our plans for Star Wars, folks. So, pretty much just know that a couple of years ago we tried to revive interest in the franchise. Then Kenobi happened, and it died. Um,
Yeah.
In tandem with Andor as well, even though Andor was absolutely fantastic and we love it and we will talk about it and the
We
second
watched it late,
season. Yeah,
right?
we came
Didn't
to
we
it
all
late
watch it
because of
kind of?
everything
I
that
don't
was
know about
happening.
I don't know you about you, Evan, but I know I watched it after everybody else was already saying it was amazing. And actually, I started watching it because I saw a blog post from Joe Abercrombie, who's one of my favorite fantasy authors, and I trust his judgment and stuff. If
Hmm.
he don't like something, he'll say I don't like it. And he won't just, he's not just there for like
Panda.
brand, like loyalty or whatever. And he was like, Andor was like blew my mind. I didn't know that Star Wars could be good anymore. And I was like, really? Really? Okay, so I
Hmm.
can actually trust that this is a little because everybody and their mother was talking about Baby Yoda. And I was like, I don't care about Baby Yoda. So I didn't care like word of mouth wasn't enough for me. It was like I had to have somebody whose judgment I trusted saying this is good. I was like, okay. And then I watched
Yeah.
Andor and I was like, this is
It feels like
unprecedented.
our Star Wars. It feels like
Yeah.
Star Wars as a whole. The Star Wars that we fell in love
Yeah.
with is respected in that show, and it's also just generally, aside from the fact that Star Wars is a great show, you could put it in any
Yeah.
single science fiction franchise and setting, and it would be
It
just
could
as
just be its
good.
own thing and it
It's
would
I've
it's
be,
said that a
yeah,
helped
million
by the
times.
Star
Yeah.
Wars
right.
lore,
Yeah.
obviously, but it's not necessary, and that's one of its strengths.
I,
Mhm.
I think that all this basically boils down to the fact that if you like the new stuff, good for you. It's just not for us. And that fact has kind of been a cloud over our Star Wars loving minds for a while. That it seems to be finally shifting a little bit, at least for me.
dark
Yeah.
side clouding or
So the solution has been
now
just to
it's
go back
broken.
to the good stuff. We don't have
Exactly,
to keep
exactly.
trying
Go
I
ahead.
as much.
Go
I
ahead,
tried a
Edward.
I
few
mean,
Go
times,
ahead.
but
we're
it
still in
wasn't
it.
working,
I
and
mean,
now it is.
and
Yeah.
Andor season two. That's the only
Mm,
new release I'm aware of that's coming out that I'm looking forward to. And so like that.
please be
I think
good.
that's out in April.
Please be good.
Oh, it's
I
gonna be
want it to
Yeah.
good. I'm sure it's gonna
maintain
be good.
that beautiful
I
quality of
mean,
the
it has
first
all the
series.
same people, so
Yeah. I know they've got to know like what they've got on their hands. Like people were not silent about how good
Mm,
they thought that was, especially in comparison to the other schlock that they've come out with. But
hmm
I mean, some of it is just I picked up early on. I won't say early on, earlier on than like the last time we tried to do this. I picked up a comic just to see, because comics used to be like my thing back in the day. Like
mm.
a lot of what we're going to talk about in the future are comics we never got around to the first time that we were doing these discussions as a group, and that includes things like the Star Wars Republic line, where I mean, we looked at a little bit of those or the precursors to those, but we never got to the heyday
Yeah,
of
never
those
got to
when it
the
got
real
into
meat
like
of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
the real
Yeah.
McCoy there. But so we're going to pick those up again. But I picked up a comic and it was about Mace Windu, and this was a few years ago. And I just thought, what are they doing with Mace Windu? And I went in with an open mind,
God, I
as
remember
open a
this.
mind as
I
I can
remember
have.
this.
Yeah.
And it was just it. Here's the thing, Star Wars. I'm fine with it being kid friendly. No problem. It's always been kid friendly. But they were writing that like it was. I don't even know if it was rising to the standard of like Power Rangers. He was going on a secret mission, and he was up against droids or something, and he had to change into a suit, probably because there was a toy where he had some black suit, and he was like, "Now it is time to don our Jedi stealth outfits." Like that was the line of dialogue or what. And I just and every and he was talking to like a young Jedi girl who was like a fangirling over, "Yes, Master Windu." And I just thought, this is like the Wonder Twins and the Super Friends,
Yeah,
and it's too. Who is this for, really? And you could say, well, it's for kids, dumbass. Like, okay, that's fair enough. It's not for me.
because the
I guess
original
it's
Star
not for
Wars just
me.
totally wasn't that,
Yeah,
with its maturity and
yeah,
its
Oh
ideas.
yeah,
yeah.
And
yeah.
but
But
yeah,
we,
So
we are feeling the spark again, and we're really looking forward to what we have to bring you in the future.
yeah,
Because
we're coming to
yeah.
the end of the dark times. A new hope
Mhm.
is
exactly,
rising. But yeah,
And I'm just gonna, can I just say, we're gonna talk about a lot of things, and
mm,
again, we're gonna sit on some of it just so we can kind of take things as we wish to and kind of surprise you every now and then. That was a nice little charming thing of like the Yoda Dark Rendezvous thing, is no one was expecting it,
yeah,
and a lot of
yeah, it
people were
was
just like,
lovely to
"Hey,
see the
look at this."
comments for it. Yeah, people seemed
yeah.
very
Yeah,
very happy about it. I was glad to
but
see that people are still interested.
I will I will unveil one other thing because I'm tired of being asked. We will talk about the Darth Bane trilogy, and you'll figure out why it came up so
Yes,
many times. Okay, like in the last discussion, and it's not because it's all terrible, although some of it
is
dot dot
dated.
dot. Like
Not even dated.
you
Dated
have
is the
to
wrong
wait.
word, but some of it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
our perspectives have changed, shall we say? But yeah, we
To
will be
be
doing that,
Perspectives
among
have
other things
changed.
as well. But yeah, just not all Star
Yeah.
Wars as well. There'll be more outside of Star Wars and other franchises and different things we're working on. But yeah, the love for Star Wars, for me in particular, has returned. And I'm
Yeah.
very excited to discuss
Mhm.
all that entails.
Can I say
But
one
yeah,
more thing, just
yes,
in conclusion on this, on a more serious note than what I just said, because that was true. We are going to talk about Darth Bane. I was being a little kitschy with how I said that, though. But on a more serious note, we don't exactly know what's going on with Connor. Okay, we know he's alive. I've chatted to him a couple of times within like the last couple of weeks. Um, he is no less a friend to me than these two guys here, but I haven't spoken to him in a long time. So it's as simple as that. And it was really nice seeing everybody ask about him.
yeah,
If you haven't been asking him directly, reach out to him. I know, like I said, I know he's around. I know he reads things. I know he reads his comments. He responds to them sometimes. If you've been thinking about him and wondering where he is, try your best to reach out to him. All I know is he's another person, like he's a human being. And so if he's going through something, we can't force him to, but it can't hurt to let him know he's missed and appreciated. Okay. So if you're wondering where he's at, uh, won't wonder in silence. Go let him know. Okay.
seconded.
Absolutely.
And with that, that is the state of Star Wars for us. Looking forward to go diving into it with the three of us and hopefully more in the very near future. I am Callan, and I still don't have an outro.
Mm-hmm. After all these years.
Always.
Matt, Bing,
Thanks.
peace out.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Evan Nova. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Goodbye.